And we're live. Okay, this is the Cash from Connections podcast. This is a live episode. I'm John Caprani. My guest today is Mr. Reed Byers from West Virginia. Is that right?
West Virginia Mountain Mama. Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome. Reed is a marketer, coach. He's also recently taken public office, and he's published a lot of stuff out there about his story about addiction recovery and getting into personal development and helping other people now. And so, yeah, we got to know each other. I invited him on. He said, let's do it live. Like, who is that? Is that Bill Maher? That famous clip of like, he's like, let's do it live. Let's do it live.
He's intense.
So, Reed, would you like to tell everybody just a little bit about yourself, the 30-second version?
30-second version, yeah. So currently motivational speaker, do professional coaching, consulting, social impact consulting, helping nonprofits with development work, marketing, PR, just really advanced social impacts. Want to build a lot of social enterprises across Appalachia as we realize that helping connect individuals, whether they've experienced addiction, mental illnesses, homelessness, poverty, incarceration, that having a sense of purpose is essential in that. And not just for people with adverse experiences, but for all people. It's been interesting to learn how many people in the professional community struggle with the same challenges. So trying to be a bridge of hope and inspiration, connecting those people and the organizations doing the meaningful work to drive them forward. Because West Virginia, one of the poorest and most disadvantaged states in the union, does not have to be our story forever. I think we have the most hope and potential. So just on the front lines of that and want to spread a global mission of hope and inspiration to help people become the best versions of themselves.
I've seen some pretty fun pictures of you lately. I think you did some stuff around the 4th of July where you, what were you doing? You were wearing you had something with a flag, or you were going around in a pair of shorts, or what was it?
John, when I was in prison back in 2020, I was very heavy from eating honey buns and laying on my rack, being depressed, figuring out what was my life. When I came home, I had lost 50 pounds. I started walking, was running all the time in prison, and it was really therapeutic for me. So somehow I ended up in this shark costume, right? Raising money for suicide prevention. And then I realized a friend of mine, Tom McQuain, he inspired me. He would run with the flag on 4th of July, Veterans Day, Memorial Day. And I took after him. So me and him would be running through town, both with our flag. I've got a little cowboy hat with stars on it. I've got my American flag trunks and socks. And it's just a spectacle. And people be like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, we're free in America. We're celebrating, right?
Okay. I'm having a real good time.
Do you guys not do that in Ireland, or?
People in Ireland are pretty patriotic, but it usually centers around sports. I mean, we have certain memorial and festival days, at certain times of the year to celebrate independence. But I think a lot of patriotism in Ireland does focus around sports and national sports teams, especially rugby and soccer. Mm-hmm. So you talked about being in prison and then coming out, and you had a sort of big personal change during that time. What was your introduction to personal development and deciding my life's going one way and I needed to go a different way now?
It's really fascinating. Back in high school, what was the platform we listened to our music on? YouTube. You had access to everything. I came home and there was a premium available. So $15 a month, I got unlimited YouTube. The algorithm, Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, Jordan Peterson, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, these guys are popping up. And I'm thinking, wow, this is really where my mindset is. The last 6-8 months in prison, I had locked in. I became certified as a plumber, got certified as a tutor. I was in horticulture class, going to AA, NA 5 days a week, involved in chapel, captain of a kickball team, baking cakes, lifting, running. I mean, just off the walls, connected with my purpose, wanting to come home and be a different person. I had a 3-page plan: mind, spirit, body, gainful work, volunteerism. How do I take care of myself and use my past experiences to help other people? I knew I had to have a foundation of health. So these guys chimed in on my YouTube, David Goggins, for example. And I'm thinking, wow, these are people I can really learn from. I would end up traveling hours at a time around the state just to enjoy being able to drive. I was running 5Ks on the weekend, and these guys were my college. I swear I've done enough professional development over the past 4 years to have an associate's, if not a bachelor's, a couple hours a day there for a while. Admittedly, over the past 6 months, not as much as I would love. Got some sweet newsletters, whether it's James Clear or Ben Meir, Dan Coe's somebody I've followed for the past couple of years. I don't know if the audience is familiar, but Dan Coe really talks about becoming a solopreneur, which I didn't know that's kind of what I was, but it is. And taking whatever things you're excited about, whatever things you want to learn about, hyper focusing on them, learning about them, then using that learning process, explaining the solutions and problem you solved in your own life, and then providing that to other people, you can monetize that. You can provide it as a product or service, get paid to speak about it. And that's really what I've been doing. And people want to hear, how did you overcome addiction? How did you survive being homeless or in prison? You know, how have you risen to be a nonprofit leader? You were Philanthropist of the Year in 2021, Young Business Leader of the Year the next year, been honored at the Capitol for Overdose Awareness Day, advocating for families. So how did you get from being incarcerated to here? And I've learned that there are so many ways that I can market and monetize the experiences that I've had, and I'm still working on that. I mean, it's a process, John, and I'm sure you've got an amount of experience in this field. For my audience that's watching, maybe they don't know you already. If you could give a little background as to what you do, it can help provide some context for overlap.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. So for me, these days I say a marketer, which is kind of a vague term that doesn't make sense to a lot of people. I help people to advertise their businesses is the simplest way of describing it. I worked a lot with online business in the last few years. This year, I've made more of a focus back towards online business, and particularly like blue collar and local service type businesses. That's what I primarily focus on these days. So I help them with advertising. I help them with sales processes. I help them with thinking about how to communicate what they are offering to the people out there. And it's stuff that I think a lot of times people who are like very practical, hands-on type of business people really don't enjoy that part of business. They're like, I just want to do my thing. You know, I just want to build a house. I just want to chop down trees. Just want to landscape this garden. And they sort of they tend to have a lot of referrals or base their business around referrals and hoping that work will come along or that their reputation will spread, all of which is really good for them, but it's not reliable that you can consistently get new people talking to you every day. So I'd help them with just getting new conversations started consistently with people who could potentially turn into customers.
And there's an exciting overlap with marketing in general and then my career progression. The reason I was ignited with this purpose when I was in prison, John, is because my mentor, said, you feel like you've thrown your life away, but really look at your past experiences and the opportunity to help when you come home through being a witness and sharing your testimony. And I didn't believe him at the time, but I had maybe a couple hundred friends, close family and friends on Facebook. And, I was taught when I was a young person, you don't really share your past business and trauma and stuff. But I did share that I made it home and I was successful and I was going to start this job as a youth recovery coach. And people were really inspired and happy to hear that I was doing well. And as I was transparent and vulnerable about my story, more and more people would reach out. Slowly, my social media audience, I got connected with longer friends and colleagues and such. Over time, John, I realized that in a way, what you're doing is you're marketing yourself. You're marketing your story. You're showing your value in the marketplace. Maybe you're not asking for money, okay? But people's attention now is monetized. I don't know if you've watched The Social Network or not.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the more time you spend on this, the more money the people who have the apps and the software are making. So, as a content creator, the more eyes and engagement you get on your posts and your media, the more valuable a business, a solopreneur you can be. It took me many years to get to this place. Thankfully, Dan Coe and really just a long journey of realizing you can't serve on 10 nonprofit boards, have 3 jobs, run for public office, and that be sustainable. There's a health component, there's a money component, and it's tough to make decent money in the nonprofit community. I think you'll see with nonprofit executives, a lot of them are shifting out of the CEO or full-time development roles, and they're doing development consulting where you can maintain 3 clients, 80 grand a year or something, and not have the confines of having to be in an office, report to HR, et cetera. It's been really fascinating to learn how the marketplace has exploded because of the internet, and marketing is such a central component of that, whether you're a solopreneur or you're a service-based business, because as you know, John, if you're not on social media, whether you're a painting business or a landscaping business, you're missing opportunities. You don't have to have it, but you're setting yourself at a disadvantage if you don't. So there's so much opportunity.
You make yourself socially invisible these days if you don't have some presence on social media. And for some people, that's just fine. Some people, maybe their business doesn't rely on it. But for anybody who is starting something, it's probably the quickest way to get in front of people who may want to become your customers. And just what you touched on there is that this idea that you don't share your personal. And then a lot of people come onto social media and think, okay, I'll start social media for my business. I'll get a logo, I'll get a business name, and I'll put all of there. And then they get no engagement at all. And in social media is about personalities. I mean, you are working with different organizations, but people know you by your name. They know you by the personality that you're sharing with the world. And we're all kind of raised to keep a lot of our life private. And I'm not suggesting that we share everything on social media, but the more I've found that I've put out a mix of things, like some stuff related to business, some stuff that can help my clients or could be of interest to potential future clients is great. But also just sharing your life, your values, what you're interested in, subjects, essentially just putting a bit of your life online, the more that people tend to engage with you and want to know your story and also want to support you along your journey as well.
As I gave the TEDx talk back in February, the way humans connect now has just changed drastically. I'm sure you recall when Facebook threw reels on our feed without asking us if we wanted them. And I think people's mental health has declined since then. I know mine has. Facebook reels just really trashed my mental health being on social media. So there has to be a stricter boundary. But it's a place we go to connect, and it's a place we go to build community and relate to each other. A lot of people don't really have a lot of in-person human interaction. So we get that on social media. So typically with in-person interaction, you're going to share some vulnerable moments. You're going to share who you truly are. You want to be authentic with people. And there's an element of necessity, I think, doing on social media. It's been a challenge since shifting from doing direct service work and then, nonprofit work and then starting my business. I built my personal brand. My personal brand was built on being vulnerable and transparent, talking about the suicide attempts, talking about the hard drug use, the influence of negative family relationships, my poor decisions, how I currently struggle, with mental illness, and it's something I have to very closely take care of. That's what my personal brand's been, advocating for suicide prevention, advocating for people with substance use disorders to get the effective treatment, finally getting a seat at the table to advocate for kids who are facing expulsions that maybe they had a knife for protection or they had a THC vape, and state law maybe mandates that we expel them. But I think that that's ineffective. We've got a lot of data that supports expelling and suspensions don't work. And being a young person who's directly involved with those types of folks, who was that type of person, it's really inspiring to now be in this position. But there's also a caution. You mentioned when we spoke the other day that share your scars and not your wounds. Well, I've shared my scars and wounds as early as last summer. And this is super relevant because, I just finished a campaign. Last summer, I was in a suicidal mixed episode, and I thought I was going to end my life. I was worried about relapsing. I was hyper self-aware. I knew the type of treatment I needed. I didn't need crisis stabilization. I didn't need a hospital bed. I didn't need a 28-day program that you can get locally. I needed, 1 to 3 months in person with a positive environment, structure, routine, purpose. And that's very difficult to find. You're looking at anywhere from $40,000 to $120,000. John, to get that type of treatment. But I knew that's what I needed for my life experiences. So we started a GoFundMe to try and raise money to go to treatment, and realized it was too much money. So we try and shorten the goal to get a brain spec scan. And if people aren't familiar with those, Dr. Daniel Amen in the DC area, he's developed this brain spec scan. They at the time had over 200,000 images in their database to identify different areas of brain health. So you get your brain scan, and you can kind of figure out what disorder you're actually dealing with. And can you treat that through holistic means, diet changes, lifestyle, and then the appropriate medication? So we were raising money for that. Ended up changing my environment. That's how I moved to Huntington. People are like, what led you to move to Huntington? I've recently located. And the answer was, well, I was in a crisis. I knew that I was driving too much. My routine was a disaster, and I needed somewhere locally downtown where I could get control over where do I go to the grocery store? Where do I get, my exercise? Where am I walking? Where am I going to the gym? How can I control my relationships? What's my work routine look like? So I found this apartment in Huntington. It was downtown. It was very affordable. I located a gym, got my groceries in routine, and for 3 or 4 months was building my health. But what I noticed, John, as I restored my mental health, as I got through this crisis period, I was vocal on social media. Hey guys, I want to kill myself. I feel like I'm probably going to act on it. I'm worried I'm going to relapse. And I know I need help. People wanted to help. they didn't necessarily know how. And it's tough when
Yes.
you're so articulate and clear in what you need. People are like, well, you're fine. Like, you're talking about what you need and how you're going to get there and how you can help set up the fundraiser. It's like, yeah, I'm capable of do that. And also at any moment I may relapse or kill myself. Please help. So you've got hundreds and hundreds of people reaching out to me, call 988. They call the sheriff to come and check on me. You know, let's get you in the hospital. And it was very damaging to my professional reputation. If you talk about the business relationships, the nonprofit, the community relationships, what I learned when I ran for office, John, is you got 5,000 people on Facebook. They're generally mostly supporters of yours and they believe in your mission. When you file to run for office, you lose 30 to 40% of them.
Why is that?
They think you're the enemy. Truthfully, that's what I've deduced. I ran nonpartisan. I'm apolitical, not a Republican or Democrat. I want to work with everybody. But the political landscape in America is, you know, Republican or Democrat. I can ask you the litmus test of, do you believe in abortion? And if I say I don't believe that women should be told what they have to do with your body, then automatically you're anti-life and want to kill babies. Yet if you say I don't want a vaccine given to me or be made to give to anybody, then you're automatically, you know, want to kill people you just want to kill your community. When it's like
the least charitable possible, what's the word, assumption about other person's views based on one opinion. It's very difficult to deal with. People will jump to these wild conclusions.
So whether you're left, right, or moderate, you're going to lose a percentage of the time. And that was hard for me the first time I ran for council because I wanted to help everybody. If you talk about suicide, like, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, like, stay here. Let's find you some purpose and connection in the community and help you contribute together to feel that love. We all deserve that. So, but those people, like, you lose the care and affection and support of them. And when you get into some type of sharing a massive wound like that of I want to kill myself or I might relapse, people want to stay away. Why would I invest in this? Why would I invite him to serve on my board? Why would I purchase his services? Is he stable to come and speak? I had to cancel a couple of speaking engagements when I first started my business because I just wasn't able to fulfill them based on my mental health. And that's hard. At what point do you contribute it to your mental illness and then also take responsibility for your actions? I had stepped off a couple boards and canceled a speaking engagement, and a woman said, you know, it's kind of hard on me for doing it. And I said, you know, I get that, but I couldn't, you know, I had to take care of my mental health. And they said, well, I would always want you to put your mental health first. And I do. And sometimes that involves harming business relationships. It might involve harming my public reputation now as elected official. But it's important that I don't stop. It's important that I don't stop sharing, you know, what makes me who I am, because I think historically we don't have a lot of people in leadership that are able to be honest. And now I'm here and I've built my career about being honest. So it's really exciting. I'm unsure where we started to get on this tangent here.
That's totally fine. I think it's because we spoke about this before, and I've talked about this idea that you should definitely display your scars, but hide your wounds. And the reason I say this to people that I'm working with is for exactly the reasons you just said. My friend Brennan, who described it as, it's like if you're on a sports team, if the coach knows you're injured, you're sitting on the bench. And that's just how it is. And like, you might say, hey, coach, I'm good, I can play. But he's like, no, not till you're medically cleared. Like, not till the team doctor says, hey, your leg's good, you can play again. That's just how it goes. So when you share something that's a current wound or a current problem, mentally, people will just file you in that category. He's on the bench for now, and maybe he'll be good later. Or some people will just write you off totally. He's gone, he's no good. But some, you know, the more charitable people will say he's not good right now, maybe he'll be good again later. And that's just how human nature is. So, and I get why you do the way you do it. You're saying, hey, I've built up a public platform. I've got people listening to me and paying attention to me because I've been extremely open about all these challenges in life. And there's people out there who relate to me and want to hear about this stuff and want to know they're not alone in the challenges they face. And it's a hard line to walk because there's that part of things, and then there's the other part where you're doing stuff where you're working with like serious organizations, like organizations that support other people. You're now working in local government. You've been elected to a local public office, and those people want to feel like they want to feel like that there's that they've got a safe pair of hands to work with, right? That there's somebody who can just show up and compartmentalize their life and get some professional duties done. They almost feel like there has to be that separation. But life is kind of messier than that.
It is messy. And I think we talk about solopreneurship and marketing and business, and then niching, which is something I've stayed away from doing, trying to box myself in, because I've learned, life's amazing and you want to do everything you're interested in and you want to help people as many ways as you can. As I came back from this mental break and got my health in place, and ended up getting invited by Yannick Silver out to the Forum's mastermind, who started as a copywriter and marketing, writing ads when he was young. That's how he got his venture into business. And then spoke about being vulnerable, how our mental health system needs to improve, and connections essential in that, and making a social impact in this room full of 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs. That's actually how I came across you, John, is through Michelle Lambert, who I met at Forum's Mastermind.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Michelle's lovely. She's great.
Yeah. And then Reginald too, who has been a mentee of yours, and he's great.
Reginald Bray, yeah, another great man, lovely guy.
Love him to death. So eventually I came back. Right, the business was good. We're growing that, running for public office. People now respect and trust me more than they would have during that time. So I've demonstrated that you can talk about killing yourself on social media and still be a successful entrepreneur. And you don't have to hide from it, and you don't have to excuse it. And then sharing the strategies and the transition and the struggles with it is actually probably very valuable if you think about professionals who are struggling with mental illness, trying to cover it up, trying to find treatment, who are struggling with an addiction. If you provide professional development saying, hey, this is how I navigated my career with having these conditions and advocated for myself in the marketplace, I think people are going to want to hear more about that. So I'm excited to kind of grow in that and see how that fits into helping people.
You talked a few moments ago about volunteerism and helping others being like a key thing for you, a key value, something that is very personally meaningful. Can I ask you why? Why did you were in a state of things were not going good for you, and you said, okay, I got to get healthy, I got to fix my brain, got to fix my body, got to feel spiritually good about the future. But why was volunteering such a key element for you to make that happen?
Yeah, especially coming home from prison. I don't have a wife or a girlfriend. Dad's in my life, very limited capacity. I've got a great mentor, so my social and family life is pretty small. I fell in love with helping. I know that it's my purpose to help people, and not just sharing about your past, but like showing up and having a smile and caring about people, asking about them, learning about them really makes a difference. So helping at 5Ks, raising the money for American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, being invited to sit on boards, but not sitting in an executive meeting, but showing up to the programs, talking to people who are homeless, helping teach them life skills. I was set on fire. I joined every civic organization I could. A friend of mine, I was marching a parade with the Parkersburg JCs, and she saw me there. And she said, are you a serial volunteer or what? And I said, well, I wouldn't frame it that way. I'm really involved in the community. But I looked at the community as my family, John. And that's why it was so important to me. Really, my volunteerism and community involvement, and the reason I've shifted into a business that's really more of a social enterprise, is because being connected to people on a grassroots level is essential for humans. And I get my family and social support in that way. And I truly believe that having a higher purpose, that it's my duty to serve. If somebody's struggling, it's my duty to help them. You have to take care of yourself and have boundaries. But also, if we all took care of those around us, we would be taken care of. And I truly believe in that. So being able to be a part of that, see the results, and hopefully inspire others to take action in their communities, I'm on fire about that being my purpose, and I hope other people catch on and do the same.
You said you worked and actually a contributor, like a board member of multiple different organizations in the nonprofit space. What kind of work do you do in nonprofit? Like, can you break that down in terms of what it looks like on a day-to-day basis?
Well, it's a big question because it's changed. I stepped off of all of the boards that I served on at one point. And now have the one board position for our local Board of Education, which is an elected position. In my business, I work with a couple different nonprofits or businesses, helping them start a nonprofit, a 501c3. One of the organizations I'm super passionate about and have served as a volunteer and now help them with development work, which is fundraising, public relationships, community engagement, is the Ohio West Virginia. It used to be the YMCA, Young Men's Christians Association, but now it's the Youth Leadership Association. We have youth in government, at the Capitol. It's a 2-day immersive experience for high school students. They get to see what the legislature's like. You know, they get to visit the Senate and the House floors. They elect the governor. They elect the Supreme Court. People run around as pages and they produce the press. So it's a really immersive experience for those kids to get a taste of what's it like to be an elected official. What's the day-to-day for them? We also have an 8th grade program that's similar to that, but it's just 1 day. And they get to sit down at a banquet with their elected officials. And it's really inspiring that many of their elected officials at one point in time were a part of the Youth Leadership Association. Another one of our programs is Camp Horseshoe, which, as I talk about my story at large, I tried walking there after I graduated high school and was homeless because I participated in their leadership camps. They have a leadership and an entrepreneurship camp. And that was the most sense of belonging I had ever felt. Kids from West Virginia and Ohio who were positive, uplifting. They accepted me for who I was. They didn't know that I was the kid at home smoking weed and cigarettes. They just thought, I was one of them. So the sense of purpose that camp provided, I've learned is a means for substance use prevention. It's a means for helping prevent mental illness, the onset of that. It's a means to help with youth homelessness and incarceration. Getting kids involved in positive programming at an early age, the Icelandic model for prevention, says that that's the key to it. So the Youth Leadership Association is one pathway to helping with that mission, and I'm happy to work with them now. Some of the organizations in the past I've worked with, I've done running classes with the YMCA locally. I brought West Virginia's first Healthy Kids running series. I'm still nursing from injury and would really like to get back to running because I'd like to do more running events in the community. You get the kids as early as you can involved in living a healthy, active lifestyle. It makes a difference. And then when you involve business community and other community volunteers in the process, we really mesh well. So we brought 150 kids to the sport of running. That was kind of my teaser into fundraising, from having a spaghetti dinner to asking for a couple $100 sponsorship from a local business. I learned what it was like to go in there and sell a vision, to sell a product. I never consider myself a salesman, but I've learned through fundraising, if it's something you believe in, and it'd be the same for public office. I believed I was the best candidate because of my heart for service and my experience being relevant and my ability to work. Just like I believed in, the cause for suicide prevention. So I'm willing to go out there and run in a shark costume. And by you guys giving to this, you're helping doing a good thing. So learning sales and marketing through fundraising and nonprofit work has been interesting. Another thing to note is that I spent about 6 or 8 months building a How to Save a Life program up in Parkersburg. And I had worked as a youth recovery coach in the mental health field for 6 months and found that I wasn't effective as an employee in a positive way. I spent less than 8 hours a week providing direct service to my clients who were 12 to 25, struggling with different conditions. And the rest of the time, I would kind of be told no to go be more involved in the community, told no to sit on leadership calls, and made to sit in different trainings that I felt just weren't effective use of our time, especially since we're being funded by the state, grant funded to provide these services. I ended up getting told that I couldn't be in the schools despite being hired to be in the schools because of my background. So it's been interesting to be full circle now that I'm on the executive board of the local school system. But I ventured out and realized maybe I could start my own nonprofit doing the same thing. One of the things in America here is our private insurance system and medical system makes it kind of difficult sometimes to provide service. You have to have a lot of leadership and administration to get reimbursed from Medicaid. With nonprofits, you don't have to. You can apply for a $20,000 grant from a local foundation without a whole lot of strings. And I demonstrated some fundraising experience. So I thought, what if we could raise some money to provide youth recovery coaching, to do a running club? What if I could use my public speaking to create some revenue? What if we could do some free family events to bring people together? That would solve a lot of the problems I've been working on. So, my mentor said, well, go talk to the people at the local foundations who give to charity. And I did. And they said, well, we ask, 2 questions when people want to start a nonprofit. A, is there a need in the community? Well, yeah, youth are struggling. We need more support. And then B, is there somewhere else that's already doing what you're doing? So we don't create a new nonprofit and you can fit into the existing ecosystem. So it was really full circle. My therapist at the time, he kind of sparked and said, you're involved with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, youth leadership, the YMCA, Circles campaign, who helps people out of poverty, the Community Service Council, where you host a monthly meeting and have speakers. You do good to start your own nonprofit. And I said, you're right. So I'm out here on this gallivanting learning. And I come back and I said, man, they said that I should think of somewhere that I could fit in to do this. And he said, well, funny enough, we have a nonprofit. He has this for-profit counseling business, but they also had a nonprofit to help families and people pay for their insurance deductible so they could get therapy. I said, well, would you be willing to host me here? And not long after, John, he came back with a 1099 contract, independent contractor. I'd never seen one. And it was spelled out that I had the scope of work to kind of build as I wished with their approval. And I wouldn't be compensated until we fully funded the program. And then I could, be an employee essentially. So I spent 6 to 8 months getting connected with our local civic organizations, talking to the Chamber of Commerce, talking to our local foundations about funding, sharing on social media. At this time, I had set out to set the Guinness World Record for the most jumping jacks in 24 hours, which is 24,000. Yeah, and we called it 24K in a day. We're gonna raise money to pilot this program, try and raise $1 for each jumping jack, 24-hour live event. It's still gonna happen. I've just been injured for a long time since we set out to do that. So I lit the community on fire with my purpose, trying to increase recovery and mental health supports for young people, but not just in a way that treats people who have the conditions, but also to advance prevention opportunities, which could be local sports, which could be local service clubs, including kids in leadership positions on local boards, to grow opportunities for young people, to make sure that they don't have to end up homeless, that they don't have to end up dead from a drug overdose or suicide, and they don't have to end up in prison. So if there's been an opportunity, John, in my local community to advance an organization that's doing that mission or to work with people who are passionate about that, I likely have been a part of it. And I'm so excited to have shifted and grown, really. I wouldn't say shifted from nonprofit work, right? Mm-hmm. I've just created a for-profit business where I can have a nonprofit invite me to come speak and collect a fee. People might look at my fee and think, why is he worth that money? And then, well, it's because I'm giving my time to the community in the meantime, and I have bills to pay. And figuring out that I can contract with organizations and get more done, because a lot of organizations, they don't care that you sit in an office for 40 hours a week. They'd rather you produce results. And I've been able to produce results in a lot of different capacities.
So through that process of understanding fundraising, volunteering with different organizations, getting involved in setting up organizations and doing initiatives, all of those things helped you, I'm guessing, to build quite a good network. And was that what led into you actually deciding I'm going to run for public office now?
Yeah, I didn't realize the network I had built, not even probably until after I ran for office the first time. I don't know at what point. It's been, a couple years after I got home, because I never looked at it as building a network. I never thought of a network as a tangible thing that I'm working towards that's important. I thought about, I want to survive and I want to thrive and I want to contribute and give. So I did that. I found every avenue for service, every avenue to share and to help. And I did those things. And over time, the network followed. Something I did do when I ran for city council the first time, and this is a huge tip to anybody, and no matter what field you are, whether it's nonprofit, whether you're a speaker, whether you're a coach, whether you're a local business, whether you're running for public office, if you want to excel, what I did to excel in growing my network is I've aggressively networked on Facebook. Public office, for example. I looked up every elected official in the state of West Virginia, House, Senate, mayors, and added them. I didn't know them. It's their discretion to say yes or no. I'm not going to offend anybody. Some of them said yes. And as some of them said yes, more of them said yes. So now I'm connected to all kinds of elected officials across the state. And that's a very easy end to be able to text message. I mean, these guys don't necessarily respond to all the emails, but they get a message on Messenger. They're going to see that. It was funny. I actually got a message from a governor's candidate a year or two ago as he had filed to run for governor. And he said, "Hey, Reed, I hear great things about you. I want to share my story of recovery with you." And we ended up meeting, and we have a great relationship. So it speaks to the power of social media. I looked up other speakers. I connect with other nonprofit leaders across the state on Facebook. And not always even sending a quick message, is good practice, saying, "Hey, it's great to connect." But really knowing that over time, they will likely see the type of events I share, the type of projects I'm involved with, and then me being open about my story. I think it's applicable to public office, nonprofits, business community, for people to see a young person who's involved in the community that's also overcame a fair amount of things and is now advocating for progress. It's really brought a lot of people together. It's built a large network. And something I've learned from my mentor, a friend that we both know, said that David King gets more good work done than just about anybody else. And how he does that, he travels regionally from Ohio to West Virginia. So this would apply to people who travel, but it could be the same if you're a local employee in your downtown community. I've done both. When you're traveling, think of who do you know along the way. Hey, do you have time for lunch? Or if they're at the office, don't even send a message. Hey, how you doing? Bring you some cookies, drop you a thank you note. I'm just thinking about you. If you're downtown, when I worked at the health department, I made sure 5 days out of the week, I'm booking up a lunch meeting with somebody either I already know or somebody I want to meet. I remember booking a lunch meeting with the president of city council in Parkersburg. And he had seen me at some meetings, but we'd never had one-on-one time. He said, I'd be happy to meet with you. And you don't know until you ask. So reaching out to people who are in places that you want to be, places you want to learn from, people that you might want to help, and then asking to get time with them, and then making sure you cultivate the relationships you already have to be very useful, diligent, I should say, with your time.
Let's talk about your actual election campaign when you were elected recently, because I'm kind of interested to find out more about that. There's a period of time between deciding, okay, I'm going to go for this position and I need to collect a certain number of votes. And then you have to have a plan to actually get seen and for people to show up and vote for you. And then you need to execute that plan. So do you want to kind of walk us through that whole process and how you did it?
Yeah, it's probably advisable to take more than 36 hours to reflect on, is this what you want to do? And does it fit into your life and your goals? It's very in alignment with my mission to help the community and help young people. It's a bit divergent than growing a business on a global level. So make sure this is what you want to do, which, I decided that it was, and I was very passionate about the purpose. So you've got to believe that you can do it and you have to want it. There's no, I'm unsure, or I don't know if I can. If that's the answer, don't. And that's okay. You can run later on. If you decide you want it and you're ready to do the work, clear off your schedule, have things in place to where you can have as much time as possible. Make those sacrifices, relationships, family, business, job, trim it all down. You want to deliver the bare minimum on all of it. And it's hard. It's hard to let your business go. It's hard to show up half-assedly at work. It's hard to be grumpy and mean to the people you love. It's hard to let the text messages and the phone calls go. Why are you running if you don't want to win? Are you connected to that higher purpose? You know that once you win, you're going to be in a better position to serve. You're going to be a better person from the education and the growth that happens in the campaign to show up for your relationships, and you can recover your health. I don't advise being a career politician because those campaigns will kill you. Trust me. And once you decide and you commit, you have things in place to have that time. There's a strategy. A friend told me, this political theory that it's a function of time and money. So once you increase the amount of time you have, the next step is to work on a fundraising budget. You also have to pull the data in your district, whether it's a state race or a county race or a federal race. You need to know how many people voted in your last election. Okay. And then from that, you project how many candidates are in your race and approximately how many votes do you need to win. So I pulled the last couple races. I worked with a consultant who runs data, and we determined it was like 4,600 votes that I might need. So that's the goal. Well, how do you get them? Okay, there's a number of different strategies. You can knock on doors, you can make phone calls, direct mail, attending community events, purchasing signs, radio advertisements, digital advertising, Facebook, news stations, TV ads, and that's just a start. So we knew, being in a new community, I'd only lived in Huntington for 6 months. Luckily, I had some fairly influential friends. West Virginia is a very small state, so you're already a friend, even though if it's a different city. And knowing live stream or commented, okay. So I had a bit of footing, but I was in an extreme disadvantage. I'm unsure how much the other candidates played into whether I had a better chance or less good chance. Anytime I would try and ask my consultant what he thought about the likelihood of my opponents doing whatever, he wouldn't comment on it. He'd leave me on red. He would say, here's the plan. You're going to go knock on doors. The original plan was to knock on 5,000 doors because we got to get 4,600 votes, right? So go knock on 5,000 registered voters' doors. When you pull the data, you can get the specific demographic information of registered voters. You get their address, you get their
so
gender.
you know who actually voted last time and where they live.
And where they live, and there's apps to where you link the data. And I'm looking at a neighborhood district by precinct and turf, and I'm walking door to door. I've got their first and last name. I know how old they are. I know their political affiliation. And I say, hey, my name is Reed Byers. I'm running for the board of education. Wanted to stop by and introduce myself. Anything you're concerned about, you want to talk about? They could slam the door in my face. They could say, what are your qualifications? They could say, yeah, I'm glad you stopped by. They could just start ranting about something. And I always say that canvassing is the best education when it comes to human psychology, because you put yourself in a real world situation and you learn based on your behavior, your approach, your speech, your body language, how people respond. You also hear people's perspectives and their opinions. You had a question, John? Or?
No, I was just going to say it's door-to-door salesmanship. It's exactly the same thing, right?
That's the number one thing that the Republicans, Democrats, all political parties have conducted research on. It's the most effective way to get a vote. So, hey, we're playing to win. We're going to focus on the number one thing. Knock on 5,000 doors, go introduce yourself, knock on the same 5,000 and go revisit them before the election. John, wow, I learned I did not have enough time to hit 10,000 doors no matter what I did, because you have a social and emotional and mental battery. Some days you go knock on 3 doors and enough people are mean to you, you say, I gotta go home. And it's hard.
To beat up today.
But you've got and then other days you crush 90 or 110 and you say that was a good day. So I dedicated, several hours a day, sometimes it was whole days, to door knocking. I had time sketched in my schedule, mid-morning, like 10 a.m. to noon, to nap, because I knew that there was focused work, fundraising in the morning I had to do, and a little bit of business stuff and taking care of my health. And I would need to rest, because the only time you can really door knock throughout the week is 2:33 p.m. until it gets dark.
Yes.
It starts to get dark.
Coming home from work or whatever they've been doing in the morning, right?
Yeah. So I basically knocked during any hours that I was able to, and I had the energy to. So that was the number one strategy. So what do you need to be able to door knock? You need palm cards and you need door hangers. I overordered. I worked with a graphic designer. She helped me with my design. We threw a QR code on the palm card, just a headshot, kind of a brief bio, and it's something to leave with them with your contact information. I built my website. I actually built a better website for my campaign than I have for my business, admittedly. So it was nice to develop that skill. It spent me 2 days on that. I hosted a campaign kickoff to kind of get some momentum building. Had some different community members show up, which was really exciting. I got some support from people who were in office locally, so that was really encouraging. But once you have the door knocking data, paid a consultant. There's a lot of different firms online. It's something I actually help with. I can pull data, and I do political consulting. You get your registered voters, you get your print material made. But I guess what precedes that is you have to have the money to do it. And that was a hard process, because, well, how do you ask people to help with your political campaign? That's grimy. Politics sucks. My consultant, he said, you got to get over asking. You've got to get over it. I said, well, aren't people going to be mad that I'm asking them for money about politics? He said, no. I said, are you sure? He said, yeah. He said, Reed, these people are in your network. They want to support you. They don't care that it's politics. They give to suicide prevention or youth support. They want to help you. They believe in you. And they can also say no, and they cannot respond. He said, you're not going to hurt their feelings by asking. I didn't believe him. I always feel like, man, I'm going to annoy them. They're going to feel bad for not being able to give. Spent a couple hours each morning, texts, phone calls, setting up lunch meetings. Hey, I'm running for board of education. Wanted to ask for your help. And if they open the door, go ahead.
And is that all the people you had previously built up in your network from all the years of volunteering preceding this?
Oh, yeah.
Super nice. So it all comes full circle.
And it's inspiring to see the type of people that give. There were people in the community who I'd never met. John, I came home and there were checks in my mailbox.
Wow.
I said, is this how this works? People want good people on the board of education. And apparently I was deemed as a good person, and it was super inspiring. They say in fundraising appeals, and I don't know what data is on sales, let's say car sales, that if you send out an appeal, you're looking at like a 5% response rate. I'm well over 50% yes when I ask for money. I can't believe it. I fundraise for 2 or 3 hours in the mornings. I think I was averaging about $300 for a couple hours of fundraising when I really hit it. When I really hit 10 or 20 texts and a couple calls, I'd clean up to $200 to $400 on a really good day. And that, I was like, is it really that easy? It's not easy. It's not easy texting people you care about, asking them for money, but it works. I mean, map that out of the course of a whole day. If you spent 8 hours, you're like close to $1,000 a day. Eventually you'll tap your network, but it speaks to what I would tell any political candidate. This is inside information. If you were running a campaign and you hired me, you'd be getting the same advice: is carve out 2 hours in the morning, and you need to text 10 or 20 people. If they're going to give, $50 maybe or less, text them. If you think they'll give anywhere from 50 to 500, feel free to call them. If you think it's, maybe a couple $100s or more, feel free to set up a meeting. Every day, a couple hours to fundraising, because you need to have enough resources to purchase your print media. You need to be able to pay for signage. And another key component of the advertising campaign, John, was direct mail. My consultant conveyed to me that direct mail was the second best way to get votes, basically. And ideally, we would have spent more money on Facebook, social media, but I couldn't get verified. So I dumped some money into digital advertising with the news station, which I probably got a couple hundred clicks for maybe several $100s. So maybe it was worth it. I spent over $3,000 on a mailer. That hurt, to spend $3,000 of other people's money on a mailer, and I don't know what the effect's going to be. I'll tell you what I learned. I do believe that social media is more effective than direct mail. The $3,000 I spent on direct mail could potentially have been more effective, because I went out and I was canvassing after people got my direct mail. They didn't know me. They still had questions. I'm glad you stopped by, because I wasn't sure who to vote for. Thank you. What I learned, the other candidates who was elected, she won by a landslide. She received over 1,000 more votes than any other candidate. I'm unsure how many doors she knocked on. I'm going to wager it wasn't 3,000. Let's just say it was 500 or less. If I'm wrong, forgive me. What she did was she leveraged social media exceedingly well. She shared to relevant groups about, the political climate. When I say the political climate, there was a situation with our parks and libraries being defunded, and she was an advocate for them to get things righted. Mm-hmm. And, you capture your audience on Facebook, and you're able to post multiple times a day. People are in their mailbox for what, a minute? How many hours are people on their phone? A sociological thing that I learned, John, was that when I would be in restaurants, I would see people on their phones and I would overhear conversations. And then a few days later, after the climate had changed on social media, the climate of the conversations in person would change. So you can see how content online is shifting reality. So even though I would show up to people's doors and say, hey, I'm here, I'd give them a palm card. They said, okay, I'll look into you. And then go back inside. I'm like, I'm right here, but you want to get on my website. So to spend $3,000 on mail that people are going to get on my website anyways, it's curious, because I don't know if it's ever been this way. I
don't think it has.
It's a new political, go ahead.
It's super interesting because, you found your most effective strategy potentially could have been social media, but what actually worked for you was showing up and talking to people. And all of these different marketing strategies in the end are proxies for a human connection. And the human connection that you can make in reality by going door to door. But from the point of view of like efficiency and being able to connect with a lot of people, it's quite inefficient to do that. You've only got a certain number of hours in the day. And as you said, your battery gets depleted. Then there's advertising and all these, there's direct mail, all these things. But these are, the amount of like real connection you get to is very small. But actually just showing up on social media, doing things like live streams, making daily videos, talking directly to your audience, it's a form of leverage. It lets you create what feels like a real, I think what people call now a parasocial relationship, what feels like a real connection to people at quite a large scale if you keep doing it long enough and build up a big enough audience.
And to speak to how to implement that, whether it's marketing for a business and you know your audience and who you want to sell to, or it's a political campaign, which you've got targeted data for people's names. What I did when I ran for city council is, it was like 1,100 people registered in my ward. I looked all 1,100 of them up on Facebook. That took a lot of time, but maybe 20% responded. A lot of those people still follow me on Facebook, John. They would point me out at the restaurant standing behind me. They're like, I don't know if you remember me, and I'm Larry. I heard you moved. So if you don't have hours and hours and hours and money to do direct mail and door knocking, one thing you can do is you can look up the 1,000. You could look up the 10,000. You can give somebody access to your social media account and just spend a week or two friend requesting voters. If your primary focus is running for office, or if you're a business owner and you want to spread your impact that way, look up the names of the people who you want to sell to and add them. It's the most cost efficient way to market, I think, is just using free social media.
It's interesting how it's all exactly the same stuff. I mean, whether it's politics, whether it's volunteering, whether it's building a network, whether it's marketing a business, in the end, it just comes down to this thing of making these one-to-one human connections. It's what everyone is missing. I think people are lonelier than ever. It's what makes people feel like, hey, I'll actually, vote for this person, or I'll show up to this person's event, or I'll spend some money on their product. It's just really, in the end, comes down to, more than anything else, just feeling like, okay, we share values. I connect with you. I like you on some level, and yeah, I can give you some of what I've got.
Business, volunteerism, voting for a political candidate. People want to vote for somebody they trust and they like. And I think that's kind of inspiring because, we look through our commonalities in that. People give to people, as we say in fundraising. Mm-hmm. Your business referrals are going to be the people you've got to deliver. You've got to be an honest person and a good person. But, that trust and relationship and that close connection is really what it's about. I always compare things to like when humans were tribal and how we've gotten away from that and how the current societal structure is harmful for our mental health. I think that's a big advocacy piece, John, as we move forward, is how can we intentionally design our communities and our spaces to foster more in-person connection? I don't want to bash social media or technology. We've got to move back to some fundamental human nature instincts. I mean, we need more in-person connection because, we're experiencing now more than ever human evolution, and it's taxing on us. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Reed, we're gonna do this conversation again because we're come up to the time. I got to jump to my next call schedule today, but we didn't really finish everything we wanted to talk about, and we can probably talk about some business stuff. So let's schedule to do this again in about 30 days' time. You game for that?
Sounds good. We'll make it happen. I appreciate you having me on, John.
Awesome. Thank you so much for showing up live today. Thank you for anyone who's watching live. And yeah, this recording is going to be available on YouTube, Facebook, and on LinkedIn as well. So let's do it again soon. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, appreciate you. Take care.